Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to our Western Australian edition of Celtic Down Under, the weekend review. Usual full house tonight. Myself, Sean, Anthony, Paul, and Tommy, all in WA. And we've already got Michael Ross in the comments, I see, who's picked up on the joke we've made with the title of the episode. Jota ends Sevco's season with a massive semi. Michael's comment as well. I thought this semi might be hard, but thankfully Sevco flopped again. So thanks, Michael, for getting in on the joke and playing along with that. Anthony, how did you enjoy the game? Was it my couch CSC, as we like to say down here?
Yes, it was. I'm at a busy day gardening actually, so sort of just trying to keep busy past the time. We had the Formula One on just before the Glasgow Derby, so kept myself entertained with a few cans, and then sat and watched the game on the couch, and thankfully we came through victorious.
Tommy, I seen you down at Johnny Fox's. Can you give us, the folks listening, just a chat about what that was like, post and during the game, pre, post, and during?
Yeah, look, I thought Gary was really good early on with the tunes. Thought that was a really good start. Excellent, really enjoyed them. Not too loud. Sometimes it can be a bit loud in there. During the game, I was just my usual nervous self, and watching a different game to the game I probably watched back today. But the atmosphere was really good. Probably a bit down on numbers, but that's a Sunday night, 8:30. Everyone's got to work in the morning. So, but yeah, no, great atmosphere after as well. Great night, and always enjoyable to beat Sevco.
Yeah, there were definitely fewer people than at the league game, but that's pretty standard for a Sunday. Like, that's the sort of numbers we had would be the same you'd get for a cup final on a Sunday night or a Saturday night against someone else, kind of thing. Paul, how was your viewing experience?
Yeah, good. Always good when you get the win. Sober. Cracked one beer after the match as a little celebration to myself. But yeah, no, I can't remember what I did during the day. It was sort of one of those days where you kind of had a few things on, but nothing of too much note. It was really just about counting down the hours. A few of my mates on a group chat were going 11 hours, 4 hours. It was one of those. So yeah, got there in the end. But yeah, can't say I thoroughly enjoyed the whole game. It was a bit scrappy at points, but yeah, I felt like we did more than enough to win the match, and that's what happened in the end.
There was a bit of a surprise in the build up to the game in that Hatate and Jota both came back into the lineup after being out with a spell of injury. May have been a suggestion that they'd actually been tactically rested in the build up to this, but my personal thought was that we were going to continue with the Wata, but nope, he was out the team and we were back to the League Cup final midfield. Well, with Riley instead of Moy, but with that same kind of shape in the sense. And Tommy, you said you've watched the game back again today. So what was your take on that first half versus second half? Start with the first half. How did you think it went with the overall starting lineup? How did we play?
Okay, well, the first half I've only watched back today. I haven't had a chance to watch back the second half, and I can only sort of compare the two viewings from the first half perspective. But for the first half, actually watching it live, I thought we were pretty average, but they came out pretty hard. They came out the first 5 minutes. They were pressing us really high. They were high energy. They were right in our face, which was to be expected. But then during the game, we sort of got a bit more of a foothold in the game. We sort of created better chances. And realistically, in the first half, that we were far the better team for the majority of the first half, in my opinion. We passed the ball well. Our passing was so much better than it was against Motherwell. Our passing was crisper. It was hitting the targets with a little, 2 or 3 yard passes into plays. It was all working really well on review today. And second half, it just felt that we had to sort of weather the storm in the second half, particularly first 15, maybe 20 minutes. And I think with the changes that he made around the midfield changes, with bringing on Moy and Iwata, I think that really sort of solidified us and sort of took the sting out of them a bit, to be honest. But for me, I wouldn't have started Hatate. I mentioned that to you last night. I just think it's just been too long for him, and it's pretty unfair on him. But he actually was okay. Like, he'd done okay defensively. He just probably didn't get into the game as much as we're used to him getting into the game offensively. But yeah, so I think overall, looking back, I'd like to watch back the second half, but I thought that in the end of the day, the first half, we were far the better team. Second half had to hang on, but then the changes made me sort of saw it out pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I don't think Hatate was that bad, really. Like when you compare it to like comeback performance of like Moy, for example, I think he was much more competent than that. But yeah, you're right. Moy did look the best he's been since before his injury when he came on, and Hatate was a little off the pace. Paul, what was your take as the soberest person I gather from our pre-match chats? What was your viewing on that overall performance and any points you'd like to
Yeah,
make?
look, yeah, thanks, Sean. Overall performance, yeah, similar to Tommy. I thought after weathering a little storm, for the first sort of 5 minutes or so, it probably was only that. It might have felt longer when watching it live, but it really was probably only about 5 minutes where they came out the traps. Maybe we were a bit blinded by the pyro, to be honest. Couldn't see a thing for the first few minutes.
5-minute delay or something, right?
Yeah, 4 or 5, I think, in the end. It was going to be late anyway because they were late coming out on the pitch. But yeah, the CCV started as he meant to go on. He blocked that shot from Raskin in the first few seconds, or within the first minute, and he went on to have a really strong match as we always expect of him. And look, he mostly has done that, although he's had a few wee wobbles over the last 2 or 3 games, the odd mistake here and there, which is sort of noticeable because he's so good usually. Yeah, look, I thought we were in total control of the first half without carving out too many chances. Second half, yeah, until we made the changes, it was a bit end to end. There was a particular bit between about 55 when AJ went off and 65 or 66 when the other major subs started to come on, where it was pretty much end to end. We created some good chances or half chances. I thought I'll be honest, I thought for the most part, Hatate was okay, but I thought defensively he was nowhere near at the press level of everyone else around him. If you look, and I guess Kyogo and Maeda are out of the box miles ahead of everyone else on the press. But I felt like he wasn't quick to get up into Ludstrom mostly's face. Like he was sort of allowed time and space to ping it around, and it was relatively short passes here and there, so it wasn't killing us with that. And I don't know if that was a tactic to allow us to stand off him as opposed to other players, but I certainly felt that was the case. And he had a couple of erratic passes, one in particular, they were crossfield pass that was miles off target, went out for a throw in. But that said, he linked up really well with Jota to carve out that chance out of nothing from Kyogo, that little first time turn around the corner in the second half, just around the hour mark. And Kyogo tries a pretty smart sort of pass type finish into the bottom corner, and McGregor does well to put around the post. So for me, yeah, obviously nowhere near as bad as say Moyes' comeback performances in the last derby match, but I don't think that's where we should be setting the bar for big match performances. But yeah, in general, okay, I'm the same, and I sort of, when I listened back to the pod last week about what we were saying just to see where we stood on this, and Tommy was pretty vociferous that he wouldn't start Hatate if he hadn't had game time the week before, and I think we all sort of agreed with that point. And sure enough, we were all wrong. So look, I think it does give us probably a bit of a pump up and both the crowd and the team that he's in there. But I'm not sure if starting Iwata, for example, would have been, we'd have struggled any more or less than was the case. But yeah, I certainly think it wasn't. I wasn't too concerned, even though we only won the last match 3-2. I didn't think they threatened us particularly. And this, although they had moments, I feel like we almost sort of decided to take a decision to sit in at points and just defend the box well, because that's what their hope is. Their hope is to throw a diagonal in or a cross in or win a set piece around there. And I thought we were much better. I was critical of us last time in terms of where we gave free kicks away. We still gave the odd foul away, but they were more sort of through the middle, and that's harder for them to find an angle to throw a ball into the box. And I think we were smarter about giving away free kicks in the wide areas, allowing them to throw balls in. I didn't think they really caused us too many issues. If you look at the highlights package that put out, the best chance that the highlights spend their time on for Rangers is the Sakala head nudge towards goal, and then Morales whacking CCV when he clears it, and then Hart does a bit of a stop in there as well. 3 of them are offside when that ball comes in, so it wouldn't have counted anyway, and they spent 2 or 3 reruns showing that tremendous chance, and really it would have counted for nothing anyway. So it shows you, obviously the one off the post is something out of nothing. Sakala should obviously tuck it away. He didn't in the final. He didn't again yesterday. That was really their only major chance. And other than that, I think we were relatively comfortable again.
Yeah, and we've got Maesh's comment with the stats. Rangers negative tactics, going man for man, trying to stop Celtic. Celtic and Rangers 11 attacks each, but Celtic 5 strong attacks, Rangers 3. Celtic did enough to be 2 in front at halftime. So I do agree with the point that we had a deserved lead at halftime. And I also do agree with the point that the strength of it. So there's this kind of tired narrative that keeps coming out after these games, right? That Sevco dominated, created more chances, etc., etc., etc. But like, to me, it's just a case of if you're chasing a game, you're going to going to take risks and you're going to overload. And when you think of the second half at Ibrox, when they were actually cutting us open in that game, and we all said, yeah, worst we've played this season. That's not what happened yesterday. They were not cutting us open. They were putting overloads to the back post and chucking the ball across the pitch. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like they were getting through us in any way. It was, and that's why CV and Starfield were coming out as man of the match. Anthony, what's your take on it all?
Well, yeah, it started off pretty frantic. These ties games usually always are. So the first 15 minutes was just the usual, end to end, pretty scrappy. Everyone tried to get into the game. Lundstrom got away with an early tackle on Kyogo. I mean, that's a yellow card at least.
Could have been a red.
Any day of the week. Well, I mean, it could very well be a red, Sean. They didn't dwell on it too much, but it's definitely a yellow card. But because it's the second minute of the game, can't give a yellow card for that. So that was the sort of stamp from him early on, his freebie. And then after that, it sort of, like I said, it went on that way. Once we started to find our range of passing, so AJ through to Jota through to O'Reilly, it's that we started to build. There was a brilliant passage of play, I think, with AJ out to Jota, and his pass was just slightly too heavy to Kyogo. It was just slightly in front of him, and that was just when I thought, yep, we've just clicked the gear here. Like the goals coming, we're starting to play balls out defensively. We were playing those triangles really well. So although Rangers were pressing us, Tillman was obviously trying to stick to McGregor, but he lasted half an hour and then obviously blew a gasket trying to take out Greg Taylor. So that, again, they were forced to make a change and bring Arfield on. And then, like I said, they switched off for the goal. And that was just, I mean, you could watch that back over and over and over again. It's probably the most schoolboy. Oh, so have I. It's the most schoolboy thing. It's like play the whistle. I mean, like you get taught that in under sixes, and 3 Rangers play, 4 if you include Kent, but the 3 all in the back just stand there like statues. My head is like,
I've got 7 of them. I've got 7 of them switching off when I watched it back.
I heard that. Yeah,
7. If you include the goalkeeper not even bothering to come off his line, the 6 outfield players plus McGregor doing nothing. It's an absolute shambles. Lundstrom standing in the middle doing nothing. Kent's asleep for the quick free kick. Raskin gives away the foul, realizes it's a foul, appeals it's not a foul. He's about 1.5, 2 yards from the ball, leaves it. Barisic allows Maeda to run off him, and then the 3, 2 centre backs and the captain are all stood like statues as Jota waltzes in behind and nods it past the keeper. It's embarrassing. If I was running a schoolboys team and they did that, I'd be giving them some Roy Kent at halftime, I tell you.
Yeah, play to the whistle. Play to the whistle.
The thing was, though, Don Robertson wasn't given that as a free kick. That wasn't like play on. That wasn't like,
yeah, of course.
That wasn't an advantage. That was
it wasn't.
That's not a foul. So, Maeda's the first to react. And I must admit, the ball in from Maeda is absolutely something else because he's managed to almost wrap it around Barisic, wrapped it around him. I mean, it was some cross. And Jota, he knew exactly where the ball was going, and he zoomed in, and Tavernier's done a Barisic and went, oh, hang on a minute, I've just been done here, and 1-0. And then obviously the celebrations from Jota's iconic, and that will get, somebody will paint that, and that will be, that will be the memory of the season, or one of the memories of the season for sure. But after that, I mean, obviously Barisic got booked as well, so that put him under a lot of pressure. I'm thinking, God, I wouldn't want to be playing against Jota and O'Reilly on that wing and having AJ overlapping me on a yellow card. So I mean, that was a rash challenge as well. And then right before half time, he goes down like a sack of spuds in the box looking for a penalty, and they didn't get touched. So I mean, theoretically, there's a potential second yellow for simulation there as well. And obviously, Don Robertson didn't have that either. And then second half, I would just say that Rangers obviously had to have a response. If they firmly believe that they're Beale told them to take the handbrake off and really have a red hot go. So they had a bit of a crack in the second half, but our defending was just absolutely sublime. It was probably some of the best defending I've seen Celtic do in quite some time. We'll touch on the centre halves and the back four shortly, but just in general, we knew what they were going to do. They were going to keep pumping in diagonal crosses, overload that back post. And we were resolute, defended well, pressured well. This was where Maeda really did a lot of work. He did a lot of tracking, covered a lot of ground. So was McGregor. And just like I said, just weathered the storm. And then we still had chances. Kyogo had the shot that forced McGregor to dive low to save. There was the one he hit over the bar as well, and that was obviously before the subs came on. But again, we'll probably touch on a bit later. So, the chances that Rangers created. I mean, realistically, the one Sakala has the open goal. I mean, that's their chance. That's the chance. And like he did in the League Cup final, he's put it wide. He's just not good enough. So
that one was worse than the previous miss. It was so much more it was on a plate, bigger gap. I don't know.
But Sean, it's one of those ones where you probably have nightmares about that. You've missed the first time around. You're thinking, if I get that chance again, I'm going to bury it. And he's just done the exact same thing again. So I mean, that for me was that was their one chance that they created. I mean, obviously Tavernier hits the post and it bounces out and all the rest of it. But for me, we were the better team. We defended better. We were more switched on. Our passages of play were better. So any of this rubbish that, they were the better team or they had more possession or whatever, doesn't stack up for me at all.
I thought our final ball could have been better and when we were on the counter-attacks. And I think, again, it comes back to we're just used to playing against a low block. And the only player on our team that really looks completely suited to playing that counter-attacking type of football is Haksabanovic, which is very interesting because he normally gets slaughtered because he can't get through a low block. But whenever we've got space to do a counter, he just seems to carry the ball effortlessly. And, he had a good showing yesterday. But one thing I want to focus on, and hopefully you guys can all have a mention and chat about it, is the officials and their performance. So first of all, I am calling it. Willie Collum is not injured. He did not injure himself. He is, and I'm not going to say he bottled it because I fully understand not wanting to be in a game with so much at stake when no matter what happens, you're going to get abuse and threats of violence to yourself and your family. Well, maybe there was even some preemptive threats against them. Okay, the last game, Kevin Clancy got the calls right, and he still got doxxed online and got death threats against him and his family because he's a Catholic. So I'm not bagging Willie Collum, but I'm also saying he was not injured. And this is how these cheats, and I'm not talking about the referees, I'm talking about Sevco and their boards and their employees have been cheating for years by influencing officials, and I think it's happened again yesterday. And you've seen Don Robertson, what he was up to. Just so happens that he's gifted as a goal by making that non-call. He was the only person in the stadium, including all the Sevco players, who didn't think it was a foul. And the first person to realise it was Daisen Maeda. And everyone else is still like, wait, what? How is that not a foul? And every single Sevco player, me watching in the pub, how is that not a foul? And then luckily Maeda's straight away, oh, the whistle's not going, I'm playing on here, and we get the goal out of it. But there was a lot more to it than that. The Lundstrom tackle you mentioned. Tommy, officials.
Well, I'd never actually even thought that Collum had bottled it, as I said last week, I think, I just think that he's generally incompetent for both teams, but I understand there's a history there with Sevco as well in terms of them complaining about him, but they've complained about a lot of referees previous, they've complained about Clancy previous, and it's just part of the course that decisions don't go their way because they're so used to decisions going their way. I thought the referee was really poor. I mean, the referee was really bad. He let so much go early on. I mean, that tackle on Kyogo, he got the ball, but geez, did he follow through? Like, if you do that tackle in the Spanish league or the English league, it's probably a red. It's got to be a yellow at worst. I don't even know if he spoke to him. And Lundstrom seemed to be upset at the foul he was given against him. And it seemed to me that he was letting a lot of these fouls go. He let Cantwell away with a bit as well. It's like I saw someone mention today he's a £1 David Beckham, and I think that's being generous.
I hope he plays every game against us from now on.
He's rotten, man. He is rotten. If they're putting their hopes on him next season, bring it on. That'd be delightful. Yeah, I just thought he was really poor as usual. I thought he was letting a lot of their fouls go, disrupting the flow of the game. And then, as you said, I mean, the goal that we score, like, the reason that Rangers are standing still, to give them a little slight modicum of credit, is because they know it's a free kick. He was the only one that didn't know it was a free kick. It's as much a free kick as you're ever going to see. And then he gets punished. The referee gets punished, doesn't he? So, but for me, he was really, really bad. He was poor, but not surprising, is it?
No. And look, if we came out and lost, maybe there's a different narrative. But was it Jock Stein said we have to be better than the players and the officials. I still want to hear from you, Paul and Anthony, but I'll just bring up some comments. Pete McGee, don't agree, Sean. It's not like Colm has never refed a derby game before. I'm glad, though, that Robertson was called in because he played a massive part in our goal by not giving us a free kick. So I know Colm's refed these occasions before, but in light of the recent what's happened to Kevin Clancy in the last game, even when Kevin Clancy didn't cost them anything. In this game, Celtic going in as heavy favourites. Colm's like, well, I'm going to get blamed when Celtic win here. So that's kind of my point there. Like, he's going to get threats of violence just because Celtic win, because they're going to be lashing out at whoever they can blame. And in this case, the ref's giving them absolutely everything, and they've still managed to come away with a defeat, you know?
I think what you're pointing to there, Sean, is a much deeper issue than the game yesterday, you know, and I think that's like, you know, it's like, it shouldn't be like that, but it's just, if you make a decision one way in Scotland, everyone's up in arms, and you know there's inquiries, there's letters going off to the SFA and all that kind of stuff. But if it happens the other way, it's a little bit different. So if that is why he wasn't the referee yesterday, then that was just pretty much disgraceful, in my opinion.
I think we should all I shall spare a thought for John Beaton, who had to get called in to be the fourth official yesterday as well.
Just happened to have his kit with him.
Sitting in the Crown Bar with his Ranger scarf on, and then all of a sudden being told, you're right to go to work, put the pipe down, get in there, and then watch us celebrate with, 25,000 supporters, whatever it is. So yeah, bad luck, John.
His face at the end was delightful.
Paul, can you pick up this point? Do you think Barisic should have been sent off?
I actually thought the first challenge that he got the yellow for was borderline. Like, it's only because it doesn't really make full contact that I think he gets away with that. He's massively out of control. He's off the ground. It's probably only the evasive action that saves him. I take it one of them will be for the potential fall over dive, whatever you want to call it. Sutton was pretty confident it was a dive. I think it's one of these where he thinks about going down and then maybe changes his mind because he knows he's on a booking. This all happens in a split second, and it's wet underfoot, and a mixture of all of that means he sort of falls over. But I think pretty harsh to book him for that. And to be honest, borderline could have gone either way. Interesting. One of the things I thought was interesting yesterday on decisions in general was there didn't seem to be very many stoppages for VAR. So that tells me that, because everything's getting reviewed, right?
I don't think
nothing of any note. I don't think nothing for really any kind of delay. Even the goal, which you always expect a goal to have a little bit of a delay before, it's definitely confirmed. It didn't seem to be any. Thanks, Pete. The handball, I didn't see it at the time, but I've seen a still of it now. Yeah, it looks pretty straightforward. So yeah, possibly for that. Difficult to say, to be honest. But yeah, he could have been off. My view on the referee was he let everything go first half, pretty much, apart from the stuff he absolutely couldn't do anything about after the Lundstrom freebie. And then the second half, funnily enough, there was a lot of fake fouls, particularly against O when he came on. Obviously, he does put himself around. He's physical, but even before he came on, and I think I put it in our group chat, is I've never seen a centre back as big as Ben Davies get bullied by a kid as small as Kyogo and fall over at the slightest touch and be winning free kicks all afternoon. Like the slightest touch second half was a free kick as far as Don Robertson was concerned, for them lot. So it was quite a turnaround from what, it was basically borderline assault first half, way of play on, second half, but a little tiny little brush and a fall over and it's back to usual. That's a free kick every time. So yeah, just the inconsistency, poor. Look, yeah, I think a second yellow for the potential dive by Barisic would have been harsh. Having seen the handball in still, I've not seen it live or rerun at full speed, so difficult to say again because we can see different things in a still photo. But yeah, I just thought that he let too much go first half, mostly with them kicking us, and a bit second half. Like I think Raskin wraps Iwata around the ankles or calf like within less than a minute of him being on, and I thought Iwata played pretty well when he came on, but he was definitely struggling for the first sort of 5-8 minutes after that to get back up to speed, and he came on to a game more towards the end of the match. But that was blatant, and even if the ref misses that, then it's on the side of the pitch where both the fourth official and the linesman should be able to see that and be giving him some communication. And that's a yellow all day long. Like he's nowhere near the ball. He's just booted him on the back of the legs. So yeah, like they were clearly sent out with instructions to have a crack and push the limits of what potentially they could get away with. And so between try to rough us up, which Kevin Thompson been in the press amongst others in the week to say, that's got to be a tactic. Good that he's coaching the kids of Scotland. Fair play. And then what an example. And then between that and obviously just the standard long diagonals, like they were going long ball within the first 5 minutes. They literally, that was the only tactic. It's like a special teams in some sports where you just like, try and win fouls and set pieces and then throw it in the box. But I didn't think their delivery was actually that good. And most of their sort of half chances came from sort of scrappy, flapping around in the box or balls breaking. And Michael's right. Hart had a really good game. He wasn't asked to do that much as it goes. He had a good stop from Arfield second half, but it's a routine save. He should get down and tip that round, and he does. Like I said, he had the little block when they were all offside, and then obviously CCV finishes the job on that. But just in injury time, after we score and injury time, they have another little thrash at us of the first half. He comes out and does a really good punch and gets clattered, I think, by one of our own players. And then he's back up as the ball gets swung back in and he tips it away again at the far post and pushes it out to safety. And we defend it and move up the field from there. So yeah, Hart has a very good game. But yeah, overall, I think the refereeing is what we come to expect in Scotland. It's it's inconsistent at best and erratic at worst. And who knows? I'm not going to speculate any more than that. I disagree that I don't think if Colm's got to the point where he's worried about what potential threats come in on decision making, he shouldn't even be still putting himself up to ref any matches in Scotland. He should be done. So I don't necessarily think that that's the situation. And if he's pulling out of games to avoid that, I don't think he should be waiting until 5 minutes before kickoff. But that's just my view.
Fair enough. Before we do want to obviously focus on Celtic players, but I think it's only right that we have a few moments to laugh at some of their incompetence before we do circle back to that. So what I particularly enjoyed was seeing Ryan Kent's face when his Sevco career was ended at halftime. As he was sitting on the bench watching his teammates go out for the second half. And also even funnier was Alfredo Morelos' face when he got subbed for a midfielder and when they're chasing a game at the end and they have to bring on an attacking midfielder whose sole contribution to the game was that he could somehow do the splits and make his balls touch the ground, but could do anything with the actual ball at his feet. Yeah,
Very
it was.
impressive.
I was like, man,
It's probably the most impressive thing that they produced all day, to be honest.
Yeah, pulling a hamstring just watching this kid. But obviously, we still need to laugh at Cantwell a bit more. So Cantwell, who his biggest contribution to the game was G'ing up the Sevco crowd twice and intercepting the water bag from Rio Hatate so that he could use it to fix his hair, which was, I don't know, man. This guy, and he got 7 out of 10 in the reports that I read, the post-match reports, and I was like, oh my goodness. This is written by some Sevco fan that is absolutely buying this posturing from this TikTok wannabe who's obviously following enough Sevco fans that he's bought into the delusions that they are feeding and is pretending that he doesn't actually, like, he's pretending that he's like the spirit, he's got the ghost of Jimmy Bell in him somehow, or the spirit of Jordan Jones or something like that. Anthony, would you like to laugh at Tom Cantwell?
Todd Cantwell's what you get when you order Jack Grealish off Wish. That's basically, he's just a parody of himself, and anybody who thinks he had a good game. I mean, the only thing I can think of that he actually did well was the one time that Barisic whipped the ball over and he headed it down to Tillman, and Tillman was just stuck on his heels and didn't manage to latch onto it. But that was like the one bit of play I thought, that's not bad. The rest of it, he just coughed up possession and just knocked hopeless long balls that usually just ran straight through Joe Hart. And yeah, like I say, if you're building a team around him, then tell you what, you're in trouble. But yeah, no, the guy's a pantomime villain, and I'd love to play against him, because he's just looking at him, just going like, what are you like, So no, I'm really, if I see him in the team sheet, I'll be like, yep, that's fine, yep, tonight we can definitely handle him, because it's an empty shirt, and that's ultimately what it is at the end of the day.
There's a few comments that I do agree with, but I probably shouldn't broadcast that people can tune in on. Kaiser, probably right. And Tommy, are you a Cantwell fan? Do you hope he plays every game against us from now on?
I think I might have said it earlier. Like, he is such an average footballer. If he's in the team next year and they're pinning their hopes on that kind of player, then bring it on, because they will just fall further and further behind us, because he's just not a footballer. He's like one of those plastic hard men as well. He's more interested in his hair. And one of the things that I, when watching back the first half earlier tonight, is when he tried to get the crowd going and he was doing this. Paul Cuddihy, not the best commentator in the world, but he was just laughing at him. And I think he said, is there anything more galling than such an average player trying to get the crowd going? And to me, that pretty much sums it up. That's exactly what he is. He's a bang average player, and not anywhere near the level that should be required to play against a team like Celtic if you're going to want to try and beat them. So bring it on. If he stays, more than happy.
Yeah, definitely. And I know they're talking about a rebuild, but if they're spending 45k a week on players like that, then I don't see how it's going to go well for them. Yeah, I'm sure he'll dominate teams like Dundee United, but he didn't do so well in Aberdeen last week, and he didn't do so well against us in 2.5 games that he's played. Paul, which of our players would you like to focus on to assess their performance? Did you get tired watching Maeda run? What did you make of Mahesh has mentioned McGregor dragging Tillman around the pitch till he had to go off injured, saying we missed a trick there. Who stood out for you other than what we've touched on already of the back line, the back three?
Yeah, so look, I thought obviously Maeda's work rate was tremendous. We've touched on his cross for the goal. His general link-up play was pretty good. He's still struggling to get the better of Tavernier in terms of one-on-one, but really, I don't think I don't know why he persists trying to go around the outside there, because when he does, on the times he does, he sort of starts that decision, and then halfway through he sort of almost feel like he's kind of given up on himself and he's not gonna make that. But when he cuts inside, or he sort of looks for interplay and then movement, they can't live with that. The goal's a perfect example of the fact that as soon as we do any kind of half decent ball movement and player movement, they can't live with it. They're statues. And look, interesting on Maeda, because sometimes they swap wings and nothing much happens, and sometimes they swap wings and something amazing happens. And if we compare, there was a little bit of swapping between him and Haksabanovic last week, and nothing really happened during that period. And it probably wasn't done often enough, given Hax's preference for the left-hand side and how he was sort of pretty ineffectual down the right. That just proves that Maeda can be dangerous on the right-hand side. It's not his preference, but he can be. And also, I guess, in week-to-week comparison, which we do this is what we do every week. We do a deep dive. We spoke a lot last week about how our crossing was very, very poor. It was flat. It was along the ground. It was easy to defend against. And we only threw much fewer crosses into the box in general. Certainly that was, my eye view. I've not checked stats to see if there were stats on crosses, but generally I thought we threw less crosses into the box, or fewer crosses into the box, but the ones we did tended to be of better quality, and the few that we threw in the air, and Jota chucked a couple in as well, were dangerous and caused them issues. But yeah, that was class from Maeda. His work rate defensively is incredible. He was still chasing things down deep in injury time. So he was brilliant. I thought Jota, for coming back out after a few weeks out, was really good first half, with the exception of he should have probably had another one middle of the second half when he just takes his eye off the ball. It's a great ball into him at the back post, and I think he's already
as well.
Yeah, I thought it was. Yeah, so I think he's already thinking this is going to be a goal, and he just takes his eye off it for a second, and it's away. But yeah, I thought, and obviously his contribution in terms of the goal is great. But his, to the points earlier, his interplay down that wing, once we started to get a grip of the first half and push it around quite nicely, he was dangerous, and they were worried. And after he switched sides before the goal, he was cutting in and running across field like he often does and linking up, and he was causing loads and loads of problems. So I thought, and a little word for Kyogo. I know I've covered 2 or 3 there, but Kyogo's did his same as he's done a lot of times. He worked ridiculously hard and not really got too much change out of it. But if you like first half, if you Tommy's watched it back, so he can maybe jump in and tell us what he thinks of this. But I noticed first half, like especially Kyogo and Maeda's work rate, the amount of balls that either McGregor or their centre backs just basically punted either into nowhere and returned the ball to us, or put it straight out of play, was more. It was quite a few times that happened, and that was pretty much all down to the work rate of Maeda and Kyogo closing down quickly. And they're still not expecting that. And they're trying to take shot. They're trying to do what we do and play it out from the back, but they haven't got the ability to do that. They haven't got the players to do that. And they haven't got they also don't have the front players that will close down with the energy that we will. And it just threw them into disarray. And I think that's part of the reason why we controlled the first half as well as we did, just through the work rate of the front players.
Yep.
Yeah, just back that up. Just back that up, Paul. It's one thing I noticed actually watching the first half back today. And obviously, the first 5 minutes they came out, like, they really had a go as they were pressing us really high. But then within the first 10 minutes, we'd already started to press them back, and we were doing the same thing. And whereas we could handle it, we could take the ball, we could play it between Hart, CCV, Starfelt, Taylor, McGregor dropping in, AJ. They just could not handle it. And I think that spooked them, and I think that was a big part of why we actually got control after that initial 5-minute burst. Was Paul's spot on with what he said there. That's exactly what I noticed today watching it back. They just couldn't handle Kyogo, Jota, and Maeda's pressing. It was just too much for them. And McGregor, let's be honest, he's an old age pensioner. He shouldn't be playing. So, he's like one of the worst keepers. I mean, he makes Joe Hart look like the Manchester City or Liverpool keeper with the ball at his feet. So
I just love it. Every game when they're getting beat, he always boots the ball away, and you just see his real angry, raging face. It's usually about 10-15 to go, and you just know it's absolutely killing him inside, that his career is just going down the pan every time he puts a performance in like that. It's glorious, and I wait for it. And it happens every single match. He's just such a spiteful character, and he's just getting what he gets. Sorry, Sean, I want to talk about the centre halves because I think they had an absolutely immense game. CCV was probably I don't give many 10s out of 10s for footballers or matches performances, but that was a 10 out of 10 for me last night. He was just absolutely like a brick wall. The block in the first 30 seconds when you can't even see what was going on. Like, I thought the guy just missed, but actually it turns out CCV's managed to stick a leg in the way. The clearance, the one that Morelos absolutely takes him out.
Oh yeah,
we
missed that in the officiating discussion. Not even
it's like, he has a right to go for that. It's like he has a right to go for the ball, not for CCV's leg. And it was offside anyway, so but he didn't know that, so he's cleared it there. There was one where he contorted his body in such a way he headed it clear. It was like had own goal written all over it, and somehow he's managed to clear it. he just, like I said, he was absolutely incredulous. And then obviously everything that comes out post-match, that basically he's playing in agony. He's in for surgery now, as you rumored it a couple of weeks, Sean. So that's come true, and that'll be him for the rest of the season. Predictions, he'll be out for the next 4 months. So to put in a performance like that, he knew that was his last game of the season, and just to put that performance in, just absolutely set up the game. He was man of the match, and absolutely deserving of it, because he was an absolute rock, and just did not give them an absolute sniff. And then that's where Starfelt comes in as well, because he got his head on quite a few clearances as well, especially from corners. A couple of challenges. I think it was one that I can't remember who it was that tried to zip past him, but he just took the ball away from him like lightning. The two of them played extremely well, and like I said, that was the basis for that second half performance and keeping a clean sheet. And I cannot be stressed enough how that partnership is very important to Celtic. And like I said, I think we'll be doing very well to hold on to both of them in the summer. I know they're both on decent length contracts, but I think we really got to try and tie them down and keep them, because we really want at least another season with those two in partnership. Obviously, with Kobayashi sort of there in the mix as well.
If I can just follow up on that.
Yeah, go. Yeah, I was about to say, I guess we're about to see an extended run for Kobayashi, based on what you're talking about there. But definitely we'll go around the room with the centre backs, because they seem to be the heroes of the day. Tommy.
Yeah, look, for me, I completely agree with everything Anthony said. I mean, CCV's not had really many bad touches or bad moments in the whole time he's been here, which is coming up for 2 full seasons now, which is pretty incredible. Starfelt can get a lot of stick. We understand that. We spoke about that before in terms of his distribution and maybe not being as comfortable on the left-hand side, but what he can do is he can defend. And I was thinking about it today, actually. It's like I'm trying to think of a better centre-half pairing that we've had in the last 10, 20 years. Like, if you think about a pairing, sometimes we've had a three under Martin O'Neill. We had Baldi, Vergara, and Mialbi, those kind of guys. But in terms of a pairing, you're going to be hard-pressed to find a better pairing. And one of the things for me that I think about is we missed Starfelt from memory for a lot of the Champions League. I think we were playing Maritz Gents, and we didn't have that solidity with Starfelt and CCV. And yesterday's part of the game, like the first 15, 20 of the second half, some of the set pieces in the first half, it reminded me a bit of the game at Ibrox last year where we won 2-1. We went 2-1 up, we're 1-0 down. Ramsey scored, come back, Rogic and CCV scored, and then the second half, they threw a lot of balls into the box, but we didn't once look like conceding because CCV and Starfelt really sort of just commanded the box, and that's what they've done yesterday. And obviously that's their big threat. So for me, I really hope we keep them in the summer, both of them, because I think we've got a really good thing going, and I'd love to see them in the Champions League together.
Yeah,
agreed. Yeah, spot on. Well, I think I'm right in saying that they didn't play a single Champions League game together in that campaign. I think either or both. I think Starfelt was out for pretty much all, or there might have been one game he was in and CCV was out. But yeah, they were both. I think in any other game, you probably point Starfelt as man of the match because he was immense as well. But without, spoiler alert for later, I think, CCV was, just put his body on the line, and particularly in the context of what we now know, and which we sort of suspected was the case from a few weeks back. But they just defended the box like their lives depended on it, which is what you want from your defenders. I see a comment from Mahesh saying that they need to make more runs out of the box or out of defense and break the lines. I think in certain times they do that. Certainly, typically until this injury, CCV's been very, of a lot of the season, he's been good at that. I pointed out a few weeks ago, I think it was the game up at Ross County that Starfelt, I don't think CCV had the greatest of games that day, and Starfelt made 4 or 5 breaks out of defense. So he's definitely got that in his locker. And I think it was his sort of breakout and winning of a challenge aggressively that set up that chance for Kyogo that he just flashed past the top, the top of upright in the second half. It was his win of the ball, and then a distribution in, and Kyogo was away and smashed one just over the bar or just by the post. So they were both phenomenal. And yeah, sort of a bit of a shout out to the fullbacks as well, because they were really solid as well. Particularly AJ, I thought he was another candidate for man of the match until he got until he went off injured at about 50 odd minutes, 54 minutes, I think it was. He was unwilling to be second to anything. He's another one who we've talked about his attacking play coming on since he's joined. Unbelievably, it's only since January. I feel like he's a fixture that's been there for years in that squad, and we've pretty much all forgotten how good Juranovic was. That he's slotted in that well. But yeah, never mind his attacking play, which was decent in link up. His defensive play, was phenomenal, and ultimately, I guess that's what got him injured. He threw himself into that challenge, and unfortunately, kind of clattered into his opposite player in a 50-50, and we'll see how long he's out for. To be fair, he with the moonboat on, he was waving his crutches around and dancing in the celebration. So maybe it's not as bad as it looked, but I think it's unlikely we'll probably take too many risks with him, certainly for the next couple of games potentially. So I would expect to see Ralston get a run. And I guess while we're speaking of that back four, I think it's probably worth a quick discussion about how we feel about what that back four could look like over the next few games, because as it stands, we think, well, almost certainly Kobayashi comes in and Starfelt moves to his preferred position on the right side. Pretty happy with that. Ralston will probably come in and allow AJ some recovery time, and we don't know how long that'll last, but I would imagine he'll get some games on his belt. And actually, we haven't touched on this, but Ralston was super solid when he came on. He took a bit of a roasting in the equivalent fixture last year when he came off the bench, and obviously they won in extra time. But he was super solid and sort of getting up into their box when he's hardly had any game time this season. So
I don't think you can't underestimate that, because he's hardly the kick.
He's hardly the kick. I know, because absolutely, because Tommy regularly, it's one of his favorite comments is if you play 10-15 minutes, it's hard to get up to speed. Well, he's hardly played even that. Like I can't remember the last time he played. And so to come in a game of that magnitude and then play 45 minutes with the added 5 minutes, and be at that level, he was under a fair amount of pressure when he first came on. They were high pressing right in the corner with him and CCV, and he sort of won a few throw-ins and sort of built his confidence. But just his defensive play, again, he's another one who loves to defend. He was winning headers or putting pressure on them while they were attacking, and they weren't getting a clean look at anything. So but I would expect him to get a run in the game. And then we think that we know that Taylor's been carrying a bit of a injury. He's been out at half time, at some point stretching injuries out. So we don't know how bad that is, but I suspect there might be an injury there. And if so, could we, I'll put it out, could we see an almost completely changed back four with Bernabe starting at left back as well?
Well, I think that's one of our Tuesday and Wednesday one to look at, especially when we're running low on time here. But you're right, Ralston, when he came on, I thought he did a very great job defending the back post. He was very solid at that. We lost a bit attacking wise, but he was great because they were chucking balls at the back post, and he did a really good job in that. Up against an unknown entity essentially in Rabbi Matondo, who came on and a person who's always an unknown entity in Fashion Sakala, because nobody knows what Fashion Sakala is going to do, including Fashion Sakala. So there's always a degree of uncertainty there. Before we kind of run around the other news, I had one for you, Tommy, that I wanted to tee up here. A player we've not actually talked about much, who basically played a big part in the first goal, and I thought had a great first half as well. And I thought we actually lost a bit offensively when he came on. Was Matt when he went off? Sorry, Matt O'Reilly. I'm saying that what Iwata did really well when he did come on was because the ball was in the air so much. He did a really good job of pulling it out there, and surprisingly, Moy was actually more of the break and play up than I would have expected it to be the other way around. But what did you make of? Do you think Moy should have started? What did you make of O'Reilly's performance?
Well, I think I said last week, and you all sort of recoiled slightly in horror when I said I think Moy should start, just because of his recent performances. And I understand that, and I probably didn't really explain it well in terms of why I thought that last week. And the reason I thought that was because he's a top-level player. He's got a lot of experience. He's played at the highest level. He's had a couple of bad games. He's been coming back from an injury, which Paul just touched on. I mentioned a lot because I do think that is a thing. It's difficult, and I think it's the reason why Hatate wasn't as influential as he can be. So I just thought, he's had a couple of games. He's come off the bench. He'll be getting better, and it's a big game, big pitch. He reads the game well. He's got a great touch. And I thought he was terrific when he came on yesterday. I thought him and Jota both really solidified that midfield after their initial bust at the start of the second half. And I thought that went a big way to us winning the game, in my own personal opinion. I thought they were both terrific. And just on Matt O'Reilly, I thought Matt O'Reilly was great in the first half. I thought his touch, his passing, a couple of times he tried passes that didn't come off, but he was always looking to make something happen. The goal comes from Matt O'Reilly and Callum McGregor, just a quick thinking, just get quick free kick. Should have been a free kick in O'Reilly, So I thought O'Reilly was terrific. I thought Moy was terrific as well when he came on. I still would have started Moy over Hatate and brought Hatate off the bench, but I'm not as good a manager as Postecoglou.
Tommy's always a big Moy fan, no matter what. They can do no wrong.
I love Moy.
Anthony, we talked about beforehand that there was an update on the SWPL, the ladies, and how they're going. Could you fill us in on that? Was it yourself or Paul? Was it you?
I think it was Paul.
Oh, Paul, sorry. What happens with the ladies over the weekend?
Yeah, look, I've not seen the results, and I kind of understand where the table is. I haven't seen the goal. So Celtic beat Hibs, I think 3-0 at the same time as Glasgow City were getting back on track, and they won their match 2-0. So the top two got 3 points. Rangers and Hearts, I think, are in third and fourth, and they drew one each, which means we open up a little 3-point gap. And I think the goal difference is either 7 or 9 better between us and the Derby rivals. And I think there's only a point or two between us and Glasgow City. So all to play for. We've still got to play both Glasgow City and Rangers. I
believe we're playing Sevco this Thursday at home in the league.
Could indeed be. I do know that the Glasgow City match, which I think is towards the
Celtic
end
Park?
of the month.
It's been moved to Celtic Park, apparently.
Yeah, it has been moved to Celtic Park. So hopefully
next Thursday.
Hopefully the women get a big turnout for that one. But yeah, it's got in a cup final and looking strong in the run in. So yeah, we'll see where we go.
If I'm reading this right, it's saying the game against Sevco this Thursday and the game against Glasgow City next Thursday are both going to be on Sky Sports, which is interesting. And yeah, the Celtic Sevco one's in Airdrie and the Glasgow City one is at Celtic Park. So hopefully people get along to that. They've got the final as well, the cup final. What's the day of the cup final? I think it's the day after 28th of May, the day after Trophy Day, after our final home game.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And after we won yesterday, we are now got our cup final, and because of the World Cup, it's later. It's on the 3rd of June.
3rd of June, yeah.
Yep. Saturday, 3rd of June, but they've not announced a kickoff time yet. What was announced yesterday was that the English kickoff FA Cup time is going to be on that day at 3 p.m. Now, for the last 10 years, the English FA Cup's been kicking off at 5:30, and we've been taking that 3 o'clock slot. So, Anthony, what do you think we're going to go earlier or later, or do you think we're going to go head-to-head with the English FA Cup?
If Sky has it, well, it's actually not with Sky, it's with Viaplay, but I suspect it'll be an early kickoff. I reckon it'll be 12:30, 1 o'clock, something like that. That would be my guess. Not much fairness for the Inverness Tally fans that will have to travel down to Hampden for that one, but maybe they might make it later for that reason, but we'll see, I guess. But I guess the outcome of this is that we are into another Scottish Cup final. We are 2 games away from lifting a treble. We've got to secure one more win in the league, and then we've got to obviously beat Inverness Tally on the 3rd of June. But the flip side to that is what happens to Rangers, because Mickey Beale's been in the media post match going, we were good and we were in the game and we're this and we're that, and then next minute it's going to be a summer of change, and realistically the players I've got aren't good enough, and I'm going to have to go out and redevelop the squad. But Morelos is obviously away, Kent's away. They've got a load of players that are coming out of contract either this year or next year. Helander, Jack, he's out of contract at the end of the season. The 5 players that have participated this on the weekend that are out of contract at the end of the season, so they've got a massive amount of work involved there. Summer of change. I think Mick Beale might be down the back of the couch looking for some spare change to try and pay for some of these transfers, because I don't see where the money's coming from. So he's going to be yeah. And here's the other thing, right? The knives are now out for him because you obviously we had a wee giggle and laugh on Twitter this morning. If Celtic managed to go to Ibrox and turn them over there, I tell you what, there's no guarantee that he sees out or that he's going to be there next season. I'll tell you that right now. If we really, part of me almost wants him to stay because I don't think he's got it, but I honestly believe that, if we absolutely turn them over at Ibrox, then anything's possible.
Well, it'll be interesting with no fans there, and I wonder what's going to happen after Tynecastle next week if we, because there's a game on at Ibrox at the same time as we are finishing up our game at Tynecastle, so there could be some clashes in Glasgow if the Celtic fans head into the Gallowgate or whatever to celebrate. So that could, I don't know what's going on there, to be honest. I don't know who made that decision, but it is what it is. So we're just kind of getting late. So what we'll do is, before we do our man of the match votes, which
Lost Sean.
Well, how about we do a man of the match while we wait for Sean to reconnect? So,
here he comes.
We will do our man of the match votes, but I'm just going to go around and say, does anyone?
That was the reason he wanted. There was going to be no surprise, wasn't there? So that was the surprise.
That's it. We'll just cut it off, but we're already done. Anthony, any final points we've not covered before we go to the man of the match votes?
I guess the only thing I also had written down was just the pre-match comments by them, like just very much like confected rage. You had their assistant coach going on about something that Ange said, and it really left a bitter taste in his mouth. And you've got Borna Barisic saying, the abuse I suffered walking out of Celtic Park a couple of weeks ago, if I'd met these people on the street, it'd be something different. I mean, nobody likes us. Yeah, you're right. Nobody does like you, but they just go on this confected rage, and clearly it's not working for them because, again, they're second best. So I don't know. That's sports psychologists, whoever it was they paid, whatever their strategy is, it's not working. And long may it continue.
Here, Tommy.
Yeah, just one thing I will touch. I think the boys have touched on it before, but just AJ, just like having Kent in his pocket. That's why Kent was off at halftime. Like delightful, like he thinks he's the big man. He knows he's not a big man when he comes up against AJ. He just shrinks. But one thing I would like to say is just how much Ange seemed to enjoy the game after the celebrations yesterday, and just how connected he is with Celtic support and as a club. And I think we're very fortunate to have him. I hope we have him for a long, long time. But let's enjoy Ange while he's here because we've got a special guy.
Fair. Yeah, fair point. Paul?
Here, Tommy. I guess to go back to the point on Beale, to Anthony's point, I hope he is around. He's gone from saying he needs one or two players to he needs 4 or 5 players to it's the biggest rebuild this club's seen in a number of years. Well, ever, you would imagine, since they're only 12. So I think the best way that could pan out is he gets given the summer. He does whatever he can do. It doesn't work. We pull away. He gets sacked before Christmas, a la Ange. And then they have to change it again. And undoubtedly, if they pick, who's going to get it next? Martindale, Enid McInnes.
Well,
out of work. What's our friend from Hearts? I've forgotten his name already. Is that inconsequential? Robbie Nielsen. Yeah.
Was David Martindale in the supporters in the Rangers support for the weekend? He might have been.
Yeah. So that,
I think Brendan Rodgers was there.
Yeah, he was. So I think it's going to be ever decreasing circles. With the Espanyolification is well underway, as far as I'm concerned. Their fans have basically come to the realization that trying to stop us winning trebles is pretty much where they're at in terms of their level. So, long may that continue. And as other sort of podcasts have said over the last few weeks, those of us been around a while should enjoy it while we can, because you never know how long these periods are going to last. We've had a really, really, really good run, and it's set up to be another long run. But obviously, we had the pandemic season was a bit of a shocker for us. So you never know what can come out of the bag, and we're all of a vintage where we had to suffer through the 90s during the EBT years, where it was pretty desolate. So another reason for whipping it up as long as possible. The last thing I want to mention is not on Celtic, but one of our old boys, And we've talked a bit about Barry Robson over the last few weeks, but yeah, it's been announced this afternoon that he has been given the job on a permanent basis on a 2-year contract. So I think that's pretty well deserved, but I don't think we were necessarily expecting that announcement before the end of the season. So Aberdeen have gone early on that, but I think it is pretty deserved because, mind you, if they capitulate and don't get third, it looks a bit of a daft decision. But I think I don't expect that to happen. I think they will solidify third place. But yeah, well done to Barry.
Yep, and hopefully get them into third place and into Europe and get our ex-player doing well. I see a comment here from Pete McGee. I just wanted to wrap up my final point. Rumours starting that Souness might be heading back to Ibrox. I think that kind of links back to what you meant. I can't remember if it was Anthony mentioned earlier that Kevin Thompson was coming out and saying that the tactic should be to kick Celtic, and that's pretty much what I see Souness offering if he goes back. Is there when things are not working, that's the sort of manager whose tactic is to just try harder, just be better, just kick hard, just go kick someone. It's dinosaur thinking, and I hope if they're going to be employing managers like that, then fair, good. That's good for us. They're not going to get any better doing that. Yeah, that's all I'd say in that one, really. Some of the names that have been thrown about are hilarious. Okay, let's go down, do our man of the matches, and we'll wrap up. Anthony, who's your man of the match?
Cameron Carter-Vickers for all the points I said before. So, I'm not going to elaborate on that any more than I have. But, 10 out of 10 performance. And like I said, very deserving of man of the match.
And anyone in the comments wants to chuck in a name, go for it as well. Tommy?
Yeah, CCV. Absolutely imperious, immense, superb. And you think the guy's playing injured. Just unbelievable. Superb.
Paul?
Yep, big Cameron for me, and I imagine you'll make it a clean sweep. But yeah, to produce a performance like that, one, when you know you're injured, but two, when you know you're not even going to get to play in the cup final, just shows the sort of level of the man. So yeah, 100% for me, and I imagine you'll take us home for a clean sweep. But when you go,
yep, we've got Kaiser in the comments, CCV, Peter McGowan, CCV, and Scott Howe, he deserves player of the season now. Jamie Young, CCV. And just for the sake of putting another name out there, I thought the second best player was Daizen Maeda, but I'm going to go clean sweep and go CCV. I thought it was the best game Maeda's played against them after basically being on defensive duty for the last few games. I thought he had a really effective offensive performance, and I don't know if that's for whatever reason, but I thought he had a good game too. But looks like we're all in agreement. Cameron Carter-Vickers, who hopefully we see back next season playing Champions League. Other than that, that's all for us tonight. So thanks everyone for listening and joining in the comments. Hopefully you all enjoyed your Sunday. Please like the video. That helps us with our YouTube algorithms. Please subscribe to us on one of the social medias listed along the top here. If you'd like to follow myself or any of the contributors and see the inane nonsense that we post on Twitter, please do that also. Other than that, thanks for joining in, and we'll see you all next week. Hail, hail.
hail, hail.